All right, now, as I said initially in a couple of videos back, we were talking about how there are multiple ways to create vectors in Inkscape. And one of those ways happens to be by creating auto shapes. So in this case, we're going to have a circle here. And with the circle, we have a couple of different ways to make one. One is just a free draw. You can make a free draw circle. It may not be an accurate circle, but it's a circular shape nonetheless. All right, and that's just by clicking and dragging. The other one is by hitting Control, we can now make a scaled circle or a scaled oval or proportional oval. But in this case, we're just going to make a scaled circle by hitting Control. And it does that by moving it outwards from the bottom left-hand corner of that circle to make it. The last way to make a circle is, of course, by holding Shift, and it expands from the center to make your circle. Now, if you hit Control Shift, you make a scaled circle from the center. Once you have a circle made, now it looks a lot like a vector. If I in fact hit my vector editor tool, you'll see a couple of nodes show up. However, if I try to grab a line and adjust, it doesn't allow me to. What you need to do here is, right now it's a circular object. What you'll do is you click on it, make sure you've selected your part, hit Path, Object to Path, and now it's an editable vector. It's now a series of paths or vectors you can start really messing with and adding nodes, removing nodes, what have you. Previously, without doing that, without clicking Object to Path, it's just an object. All right, well, let's delete that here. And it's going to be the same thing with the polygon tool. You can create stars with corners. With a select number of corners, you can also create other shapes as well. Those are options for you, but again, once you make that object, you have to go to select the object itself, go Path, Object to Path, and it becomes a vector again. And you need to be really mindful of that, because you may make something and realize, oh, I didn't run this Object to Path process, and you're not able to edit it later on in the project, especially when it was something so integral. So be sure that whenever you make an auto shape inside of Inkscape, you're going to want to select Object to Path. That being said, you may run into a situation where, let's say, for example, we've made a circle, but our circle doesn't look like this. Your circle may look something like, well, a red circle. Okay. And you're not going to be able to tell what you're doing within that red circle. One of the best ways, and honestly, when you're working with vectors, the best thing you can do is to make sure that there is no fill. There's a quick and easy way to do that, and that's with this bottom bar down here. So, you know, I just selected my circle, made it red. I've now removed the fill there, burgundy, what have you. You can remove the fill there. The other way is, let's say you did happen to remove the fill and then it just completely vanished. And that's because you didn't stroke the circle. That is, there is no stroking a line around those specific vectors. And what you do is, down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you double-click on Fill and Stroke, and it's going to open up a dialog for you. This allows you to, by hitting the X, remove the fill, or hitting Flat Color to put in a color, put a gradient, what have you in there. What you're going to want to do is remove the fill. Same thing with stroke. You can actually have it stroked in a gradient, stroked in multiple different ways. What you're going to want to do is just have a flat color. You can choose your color here, but you want a flat color. You can change the thickness of your line. I like to keep it at a visual thickness that looks similar to this. So right now I have it set to 0.014 inches. A really great way for you to visualize the vectors and know when you've deleted vectors, because when things are filled out, you won't necessarily notice when a vector is deleted. And we'll show you a little bit more about how that happens when you're working more with fonts. So a couple of things to remember. Once again, you want to try to remove the fill and stroke every single one of your auto shapes. You also want to make sure you go Object and Path, Object to Path, in order to make sure it's an editable vector at that point. And that is how you make alternate ways to make vectors in Inkscape. That being said, next video is going to go a little bit more on how to deal with text.